forbidden and you can't absorb those, and there are things that are permitted. It depends on the kavanah, on your intent. The Tzaddik goes a little different than the Tanya. The Tzaddik says that even things that are absolutely forbidden, there's also ways in which they can be added to Kedusha. It says that if a Navi says to violate the Torah for a higher cause, it says you can do that. You can do that. Eliyahu Navi in Har HaKarmel, right, offered a carbon outside of the Beis Hamikdash, right, in order to win over the people. And that was justified. But the Gemara says there's one exception, it's Avodah Zarah. Avodah Zarah. Now, there's no way, you can't worship Avodah Zarah for a higher purpose. Now, the idea behind this is a very, very complex idea. But let me see if I can sum it in a nutshell. In other words, when we talk about a moral decision we have to make. So, in ethics, there are two schools of thought. One school of thought is that ethics are consequentialist, meaning you look at the outcome. If a certain action has a good outcome, then it's morally justified. If it's a bad outcome, it's not justified. The other school is that ethical decisions are deontological, which means they are rule-based, they're based in principle, and there's things that are wrong to do, even if they will have good consequences, and there are things that are right to do, even if they have bad consequences. And the question is, what is the nature of Torah? Is Torah deontological or is Torah consequentialist? But let's say, for example, there's a Jew who's not religious, and somehow we concoct a scenario that if I would give him a heter to eat pork, I could be makarev him and make him into a Baal Tshuva. It's not hard to think of such a scenario. Let's say, for example, he has a tremendous weakness for bacon, ham, and that's the only thing he likes to eat. And I want to invite him to my house. And I believe that if I can get him to my house, he'll fall in love with my family and Shabbos, and he'll want to become frum. But to get him there, I have to get him to eat pork. It's the only way I can get him to come. If I serve him chicken, filter fish, it's not going to do it.
Kill you.
What?
I was going to kill you if you do that.
Don't play. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. So now the question is like this: is that justified? Is that justified? Can I give him a pork, right, in order to makarev him, right? So you'd be tempted to say that the prohibition of pork is deontological. In other words, it's wrong. It makes no difference what the consequences are. You can't do something wrong even for a good reason, right? The truth is, it's not so simple. It could be argued that the Torah is consequentialist. The only problem is that who can make that judgment? So therefore the Torah says a Navi can do that, or the Bezdin Hagadol can do that. So therefore a Navi is allowed to do that. A Navi could bring a carbon outside the Beis Hamikdash because he figured out that this would be able to impress the people on Har HaKarmel that they should give a bow. That means it's consequentialist. But you need legitimate authority. The authority has to be, either a Bezdin or a Navi or something like that. Mordechai with
Esther.
With fasting.
No, but Mordechai said you have
fasting
to.
on Pesach. Okay, so this is the question. So really it says that a Navi can be matter. If a Navi's judgment is right for a greater good, you can violate a prohibition. But what's the bottom line? What's the ultimate good? Is monotheism. And therefore, you can justify eating chazer for a higher good. You can justify bringing a carbon outside the Beis Hamikdash. But you can't justify Avodah Zarah for anything. In other words, Avodah Zarah, there's no higher objective than the worship of the one God. So therefore I can't say, I'll bring the guy, get him to worship Avodah Zarah, this I'll be makarev him. I mean, that certainly is always wrong. It can never be justified, Avodah Zarah. So Tzadok says like this. Tzadok says that Avodah Zarah is called, the sacrifices you bring to Avodah Zarah are called Zivchei Mesim, sacrifices to the dead. So why is it called the dead? Because everything else in the world is alive in some way. Because even the things that are prohibited have sparks of Kedusha in them that can be salvaged. It might require the authority of a Bezdin or the authority of a Navi, but there's a spark of Kedusha. But Avodah Zarah is totally dead. There's nothing to be, there's no holiness to be retrieved in the practice of Avodah Zarah. It's called Zivchei Mesim. So he brings an amazing medrash. The medrash says, it's a medrash, Tanchum Parshas Chukas, that it says that Shlomo says his Chachma was wiser than the Chachma of Mitzrayim. So what does that mean? So he says like this. He says that when Shlomo Melech wanted to build a Beis Hamikdash, he needed certain types of craftsmen that worked in Egypt. So he sent a letter to Paro to send him the workers that do this job in Egypt. So Paro had an idea how to make some money, right? So he used sorcery, and he found people who were destined to die during that year. And he sent them to be the workers. Because he figured when they die, then he could make a claim to Shlomo Melech for killing them. So therefore he picked people that were going to die anyway, and he figured he'd make his claim. So Shlomo Melech outsmarted him. Shlomo Melech saw that as soon as he delivered him, he saw that these are people that are going to die during the course of the year. So he gave each one of them a box with a pair of tachlichim, a pair of shrouds to wear, burial shrouds. He says, go back to Paro and tell him that I understand you sent me these people here because they have no tachlichim in Mitzrayim. So here tachlichim, and take them back. So you see, he outsmarted Mitzrayim. That's what the Medrash says. So Tzadok says there's a remez in this Medrash. He says, what is it? Paro sent people that are going to die during the year. What does that symbolize? So he says what it symbolizes is that they were dead. In other words, there were no sparks of holiness in them, right, that could be absorbed in the Beis Hamikdash. Just like Avodah Zarah is called Zivchei Mesim, sacrifices to the dead, because there are no nitzotos of Kedusha in Avodah Zarah. That's what he's saying, that these workers, they have nothing to contribute to the Beis Hamikdash. Shlomo HaMelech Adrabah wanted the workers from Mitzrayim because he thought he could take this that Mitzrayim stands for and absorb that into Kedusha. So he sent dead men, right, people that are on the verge of dying, to show that there's nothing here. There's no spark of holiness. It's essentially dead, nothing to be absorbed. And, you have to be wary of that. Or sometimes we want to absorb all sorts of things. We have to know what can be absorbed, what can't be absorbed. It's not necessarily, not everything that's out there can be absorbed. When not this is an exact comparison, this mentioning, but people think that every new technology has to be harnessed for Jewish education. It's not necessarily so. Not necessarily so. KosherTube might be different. I think KosherTube might be more for outreach. It's to bring the message of Torah to people who access this medium. But the question is, should we change the old traditional ways of doing things? By harnessing modern technology? I think it depends. In other words, I'll give you an example. In other words, we use, you have Kol Torah Kula on the computer, correct? In other words, if I want to find a quotation or tzaddik, right? So now instead of having to look through Sefer after Sefer, page after page, I just put a few words in the thing, right? And I get it on screen and I can print it out. Is that really a use of new technology? After all said and done, after I print it out, what am I doing? I'm reading it in the old-fashioned way.
You had the disadvantage of not reading all the pages that you didn't need to read.
Yeah, what I'm saying, the point is, the technology only helped me find the page, right?
Different library system.
But the learning is still the old-fashioned learning, right? So that's like, it used to be that when you needed something, you had to take a horse and buggy, and now you can drive. But what you do when you get there is the same old thing, right? In other words, if Rabbi Eliezer would walk into the Beis Medrash during Shacharis, it wouldn't look very different to him than when he davened Shacharis 200 years ago, right? He'd be very intrigued how the boys got here. Like, what is that? Like a bus, a car? You never would have seen that, right? But once we're in the Beis Medrash, we are doing the same thing that was done 300 years ago, and 500 years ago, and 1,000 years ago. So I don't see an objection to that. In other words, just facilitating the access. But then there's something else. Is what if we would change Gemara instead of learning from Svarim, or we would learn from interactive screens? Then we're using a different technology to learn. Well, that certainly changes the experience. It's not just a question of accessing the materials. It's a question of changing the very way in which we learn things.
The words are the same. They use the same words.
Well, maybe it will be words anymore. In other words, maybe, for example, in the next generation, the cases of the Gemara will become
videos.
Animation videos on,
But the content, the thing, it doesn't matter if it's a book or...
No, but it's different. Words are very different than...
But we now have a lot of illustrations of the Gemara, too, that we didn't have. Illustrated chula. Things like that.
I don't see that as bad.
No, I didn't think you would see it as bad, but it is different.
Pardon?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, in the old days, you learned chula, you had the cow.
Unanimous with all the
I had a
diagrams.
picture of the cow. I don't think there ever was a time that people didn't use illustration of some sort. Like chula.
But the Rebbe is saying the end result is still the same, whether...
No, I'm saying, I think there are certain changes that do corrupt the experience. And you have to know, can everything be absorbed? In other words, is it possible to absorb everything? Or there are things that we should better do without? Right. Shlomo Melech wanted to absorb Mitzrayim in the process of building the Beis Hamikdash. That's the remnants of the dead men coming. That there are no sparks of Kedusha here to be absorbed.
Because you already took the sparks out when they left Mitzrayim. The only spark they needed were already taken down. When they left the tape.
It's also like Tzadok understands that those sparks of Kedusha there were sparks of Kedusha, but they weren't rooted in the ideology of Mitzrayim. There was even a person whose ideology is wrong might have some other aspect of Kedusha that could be harnessed. But the essence of what Mitzrayim was this sense of power and willingness and drive to overcome and control, to feel that I am the source of my own accomplishment. That was something that cannot be absorbed from the Kedusha.